Hello. We are in the kitchen because it is raining and cold outside. Not super cold, but single digits. Um, People ask, what do I make with what I grow? And speaking of cold, rainy weather, want to eat something good and hearty. And chili is one of those. Texans, look away. There's going to be beans in it because I have beans. And you're just going to have to deal with that. Um, but yeah, let's look at the ingredients that we need. I'm also going to be making cornbread, which is why this egg is hanging out here, but we'll get back to that. I have some white kidney beans. I use red kidney beans as well. That's just what I happen to have open. I have homegrown black beans, cumin, smoked paprika. I just want some smokiness from that. Oregano, black pepper, salt, tomatoes. If you have fresh tomatoes, use fresh tomatoes. Just give them a little smash, dice. Serrano pepper, jalapeno pepper, habanero pepper, onions, dried Korean chili peppers, garlic powder if I didn't say that, and meat. Today, well, you don't have to put meat in it. You can do vegetarian if you want. But today I have ground pork, and we'll get that thawing. But with dried beans, what we need to make sure of is that we get them soaking. This is actually a pressure pot, so I can speed things along, but I do like to give them a start. We'll have this for dinner, and it's, I don't know what time it is, probably about 9 o'clock in the morning, maybe a little bit earlier. But I need to shell some beans, husk, shell. I need to get some beans out of their pods and get the pre-bought beans soaking. So let's start doing that. With dried beans, oh, that's where the hole is. This bag came with a hole in it, which is why we're using it. Oh, the whole side's open now. With dried beans, it's always a lot more than it looks like. So for this huge amount of chili, probably maybe a little more than this. Actually, no, that's probably a little more. And if you like more beans, put more beans in it. If you like no beans, don't put beans in it. But I think the texture is better with the beans in there. Use any kind of bean you like, except maybe like Japanese adzuki or something like that, because sweet is not the goal. And those are sweet. Especially after you add all the sugar and everything. Next, let's get some of these guys in here. They're not the biggest or the greatest beans, but for almost no money and no effort, it's fantastic. And I'll cut the camera. I'm just going to keep doing this for a while. All right. That's about enough for now. Oops, this guy sprouted. Just a handful of beans. Actually, a few of these have sprouted. Glad I looked at it from this angle. You probably eat sprouted beans. I don't know. Maybe not. Definitely check before you do. Just in case. But anyway, about that much beans. That many beans? That many beans. We're going to cover these in plenty of water. And they can just hang out for the next several hours. If you are doing this without a pressure cooker, soak them for about a day, I think. And that'll probably give you the best result, or at least it did for me. Yep, we will pick this back up when it is time to do some more cooking. Thank you. All right, good morning. It is the next morning. We have put our beans soak overnight. I did not use the pressure cooker. Maybe just make that a little easier for y'all who don't have one. So you can see they're nice and big and plump, as they should be. We are going to take them over here and give them a drain and a rinse. So the point of doing this is just to get any free floating stuff that's in the water out of it. Anything that came out of the beans that, beans, certain kinds of beans can give you digestive fun. So we just try to make sure that those are in. So we'll put water back in here, a lot of water. Come back over here. And we will get these guys boiling. In the meantime, there's some other prep that we can be working on. So this is the same as last night, except we have gained garlic. I went shopping last night because the second recipe we're going to make, we need garlic. So let's get a couple little bowls here. And what we want to think about is how long things take to cook. Because we are going to initially fry these in a frying pan. And we don't want to burn anything or have the texture get not great on something. So we have 2 small onions here. Type of onion really doesn't matter, whatever you like. Just as much onion as you like, basically. This is not scientific. This whole thing is less of a recipe and more of a template. You can just kind of sub in your own things, however you see fit. Let's move the microphone up a little bit. Hey, check, 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 check. Can you still hear me? Check, 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 check. No, you cannot hear me. Why? Why? Hey, there we go. Found the mute button. So I like my onions kind of bigger. I like to know that they're there. So we are going to cut them accordingly. Let's give you some more light. And this is just kind of getting our mise en place together. A Frenchy French word. Fancy French word. Having all of our stuff ready to go before we start. I'm not going to do that for everything. Well, maybe this time I will, just so that you can see, but when I make these recipes, I'm usually eyeballing things. I'm not actually measuring much, if anything. That's fine. You can be compost. So, we're just going to, like I said, I like bigger pieces of onion usually. So we'll do a little bit of this. Just clank them up. Into little sections. I guess however you like your onions, do it that way. Just don't burn them. You don't want that bitterness. No, you probably don't. I mean, you can do whatever you want. But I wouldn't want it. Alright, onion. We have our bell pepper that is pre-cut. It is thawed. I'm going to give it a rinse. Because that was frozen, it's not going to have a great texture, and that's fine. We want to add some salt into our bean water, about that much. If you are looking for measurements in this recipe, you're not going to get them. Everything is done by eyeballing it, and just play around with it, and you will find what you like. You're loud. It's not that. So we've got our 3 kinds of peppers as we talked about yesterday. If you don't like the heat, you can scrape out the membranes, the lighter colored or white part. And the seeds, which will bring bitterness and have whatever heat they got from touching the membrane. You can wear gloves during this if you're really sensitive to heat. I may or may not regret not wearing gloves in a bit. For the jalapenos, I don't think they're that spicy, so I'm just going to leave everything in. I've taken the seeds out of the serrano, just because mine have been pretty spicy, but you kind of never know. You can do whatever size of pepper chunks you want. Doesn't really matter. Some people like to have no noticeable peppers. Some like to have very noticeable peppers. I like to do both. So we do about half of them in big chunks there. You're a really seedy guy. And we'll do another small amount of these. A little more chopped up. Be very careful while you're cutting your peppers, especially if they're a little older like this, because the skin, the flesh on the outside can be a little bit of an unexpected element when it comes to toughness and slipperiness and a bunch of other things. So we've got our little batons here. We're just going to cut them into a dice, very small dice, I mean, I don't know, something like that. Pieces about that big that are roughly square-ish. And you can go as fine or as rough as you want. Again, I'm doing a mix of different textures here. And these will go in at slightly different times because they take a slightly different amount of time. And the point of using different kinds of peppers is they all have, slightly different heat and taste. The jalapenos are not generally super hot and are generally quite fruity in a very good way. The serranos, when they're red like this, are also generally very fruity. fruity, but a little hotter, and they're slightly less fruity. They have a kind of different vibe. These habaneros are around for the heat. We are definitely going to take his seeds out. We only want the outside of this guy. This is actually, I think, the first time I'm eating these habaneros this year, so these might not be spicy and I might laugh, but I expect them to be spicy. I made hot sauce for father-in-law and I put one in, along with a bunch of serranos, half of which I fermented, half of which were just as they were. Fermentation mellows them out a little bit. He said it was perfect for what he was making, so that was great. I have the other half of that hot sauce that I made. I haven't actually put it on anything yet. We might do another recipe video because my wife came up with an idea of something to make with jalapenos. She made it and I tried it last night and it was quite nice. Something that I had never thought of. Something I've not seen in recipes when I've been looking for things, but I don't know. I haven't looked in a while. So, in Japanese, there's, I guess I'll drop a hint. Torashi joju, I think is probably what it's called. I don't actually know. But it's a nice little thing that we can use. So for the habanero, I'm just doing small, and I'll put them on my other smaller pieces. Again, we're thinking about cook times. We want things to get done at the same time, which we don't want to burn things. We'll clean up our workspace a little bit. Give my hands a rinse, but don't forget to wash them before we're done. Do not want to touch my eyes. I was just cutting, some of our jalapenos are quite spicy. I was just cutting some the other day, and my hand felt like they were in fire for almost 2 days. Which is, kind of rough. Next, we have locally grown garlic. So all of the peppers are grown by me. The onions, I think, are regional, if not local. You can use red onion and stuff too. Shallot probably wouldn't be a good choice, but that's what you got. Japanese onions, probably use those. I prefer bulb onions, tamanegi, ball onions as they're called in Japanese. I use whatever I need. A little bit of the heat already. And this garlic is locally grown and it's huge. So I'm going to plant garlic probably soon. I'm keeping an eye on the forecast. But I didn't buy actual garlic for planting. I have garlic that longed to see the stars and started growing. It's huge. Probably pretty mild. It still smells like garlic. And they've just been hanging out in the fridge. So normally you want to, I think it's called vernalization. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Garlic needs to get cold before it gets hot to sprout. And it's just what some things do to know that there's a winter, I guess, for lack of a better term. So that they know, oh, okay, we've had a winter, it must be spring next. And it's just some kind of survival strategy. But the seeds have to get cold enough first before they'll be viable. And since it has already sprouted in my fridge, I'm not sure where we are in that spectrum, so that's interesting. So I'll probably plant some of that and hold some of that back to plant in spring and see how that all looks out. Beans are boiling, which is what they should be doing. We're just gonna chop this garlic as fine as we want it. Which, for me, I usually like smaller chunks. If you have a garlic press, you can use that. I just didn't feel like pulling it out. And I realize that not everybody has a garlic press. If you're in Japan, probably elsewhere, IKEA actually sells them. Theirs is okay. Forget, I ended up buying a different one. I don't remember if the one I'm using now is IKEA or the old one was IKEA. But they all work. Some of them work better than others. We want good solid construction and not a lot of gaps, because if you have gaps when you close and a lot of play, your garlic will just come out of those openings. Alright, so we have prepped onion, pepper, garlic, and over here we have the bell peppers, which in their current state of being frozen and thawed aren't going to have the same texture that they did. So we'll put those guys in here, and they will go with the bigger pepper chunks. That. Alright. Next on the list. The beans are going to take the longest, but we can work on other things while beans are working. This pan is pretty hot. Normally, I would cook the meat in this pan, start the onions and other things in this pan, and have the rest of the vegetables going in the pot with the beans. But today we're going to do it separately, just so that I can demonstrate doing this with fewer pots and pans and no pressure cooker. So you know, just put this away. Those beans will take a while to cook. They're done when they're tender enough. How tender is tender enough? It's a very good question. I'm glad you asked. Zebra. So I'll just take these beans out. Not tender. Not tender. They should smush. They should smash down pretty readily. You don't want them too thin, but you don't want them to smash too easily. But since this pan is going to be busy with that for a while, since we're not doing the pressure cooking variety, we are going to remove the meat from this pan so that we can get our other veg going. You want it to be fully cooked, starting to fry. You could fry it more if you want. Or if you like a bouncier texture, a different texture, then you don't have to fry it. You can just get it cooked part way. As long as you're cooking your chili for a long time, when it's all mixed together, then you could put it in there raw and just let it cook. That would add a lot of fat potentially, depending upon what kind of meat. This is pork, by the way, pork mince. So you might want to be careful of that. You can always skim the fat off the top later. But speaking of fat, I have no idea how much this is. It's probably 3/4 of a kilo. I used to weigh it all before portioning it out, and now I just eyeball. Don't care. Can't be bothered. Alright, a couple little pieces of meat still hanging out there. That's fine. First, we are going to go in with our onions. We might need some more fat in this pan. That's fine. Just braise things up a little bit. Be sure to fling your onions all over your kitchen. It's a required step. I'm really hungry and that smells fantastic. But it is 9:46. The chili is not going to be ready for a while yet. Speaking of needing a little bit more fat, go in with some bacon fat. You can use whatever oil you have. Generally something with a higher smoke point is better. Vegetable oil, avocado oil. I am mostly using animal fat because I have it. Have it from cooking bacon. So we will use that. So these are nice and fragrant. They're not cooked much yet. We're getting there. You do want to keep this moving. We're working at medium high. This stove does run a little hot in the medium, so this is probably more like a medium high. Next, go in with our things that cook in the medium amount of time, which are our bell peppers from the farm here, and chili peppers, also from the farm here. And I can already tell you they're spicy. We're starting to spice mellow out. This time by and again, since we're doing this all in this one pan, you'll notice that we're getting crowded already. There's a lot going on here. So we're going to also remove these guys once they get some more color on them. And that looks good to me. If you have a big enough bowl, you can put this in the same bowl with the meat. They're all going to go back into together at the same time. It's just this initial cook that we're trying to keep control of our texture, color, and so on. And you can half this. I looked at how much meat I had and we'll make this much. And some of this will probably get frozen. I have already frozen chili and it's great because you can just pull it out, let it thaw in the fridge overnight, and put it in a pan or in the microwave and you're ready to go. All right, and finally, we're gonna pull the heat back a little bit on this one. We are going to go in with our peppers that were cut finely, and at the same time our minced garlic. And I am actually going to turn this off because the residual heat is going to be enough. We do not need to go long on this. Just enough oil to make sure that everything gets the same amount of heat applied to it. The oil helps with the conductivity of the heat. Still spicy. We're just Ooh. This is gonna be a spicy one. And that's all we need to do. All the more we need to cook that. Just get some color on it. Pull a little bit of the bite off of the garlic. And now, we're just waiting on beans. These beans might take, if you're not using a pressure cooker, they might take an hour or two, maybe more to cook. So we'll come back in a bit when the beans are ready. All right, we're back. I did break down and use my pressure cooker because I'm hungry. If you do not use a pressure cooker, you just need to keep an eye on the water level and keep adding more. Before I switched to using the pressure, I did add more water and let it come back up to a boil. You can do a bigger pot, more water, but definitely keep an eye on it because the beans will soak up a lot of water, and of course you have the evaporation from boiling. So, we're going to come over here, and we're going to drain our beans. These white beans have a lot of little pieces of shell, husk, and they disintegrate. High in fiber, a little rough. If you really wanted to, you can remove them all before you do this. That's really way too much effort. So as long as your beans are most of the way cooked, we're fine. Because they're going to continue to cook. And bean juice may very well stop up your sink. Yeah, I took these a little too far, actually. The black beans are perfect, but the white beans are mush. They felt about the same earlier when I checked them. That's fine. This is still going to serve its purpose for textural and protein purposes. So, you're going to attempt to force the sink to drain. Which it will refuse, so that's a problem for me here in a few minutes. I'll give this a quick wash. You don't have to. Not a necessary step. But I don't want to burn any bean bits by accident. We're going to come back over to the stove. We're going to start this on medium heat. I just want to evaporate out all of the water that is in there. We're going to put oil in there. But they don't mix very well. Still need a better solution for the battery. Can you stand there? Oh, that'll work for now. Now they talk about showing your successes and your failures. That is a bit of a beanie failure. But still going to eat it. We're going to start. These are cut tomatoes. You can use these, you can not use these. It's entirely up to you. Some people use beef broth or chicken broth. That's fine. It's really good. I don't happen to have any handy. So we're just gonna do tomatoes and water. It'll be fine. It'll taste good. So, in with a high smoke point oil. This time I will use a little bit of canola oil. If you have a non-stick pan, you don't need to use that much. This pan loves to burn things. So, where do we want to start? Cumin. I'm immediately going to pull back on this heat. I like a lot of cumin. Smoked paprika. This is just because I want to smoke this. Freshly cracked black pepper. Dried Korean chili flakes. And we'll just give this a second to be spicy. Open up, wake up. Wake me up inside. Can't wake up. You're gonna pull out a couple of things you might not expect. Soy sauce. Nampra, fish sauce. Honey. So, spices smell toasty. Gonna go in with our liquid. I'm going to add water. I know that's not going to be enough liquid on its own. Just be careful you don't burn yourself when you do that step. You could bring the spices up more slowly. It would probably taste better. This will make it a little bit bitter because there is a little bit of burning. There's our cut tomatoes in. Use fresh tomatoes if you have them, if you want tomato. This is soy sauce. You'll notice I'm not putting any salt in this portion. So we're doing all of that with a combination of soy sauce and fish sauce. In the most annoying fish sauce bottle in the world. Fish sauce doesn't really taste like fish. In a dish, I've never tasted it on its own. Yeah, this is very salty. As I knock everything in the refrigerator over. We have acid and heat. We want to add some sweet. So I'm going to attempt to squeeze in honey. This honey is mostly solidified. You can use sugar, doesn't matter. We just want sweet. And this is all eyeballing. There are no measurements here. I will taste this at the end and see where we're at. Oregano. We don't want to toast that with our other spices because it's really easy to burn. If you do, be very careful. Buyer beware. A little bit of clearing my space here so that I can actually work. And finally, I forgot that earlier. Did the whole thing talking about why I want my hands dry. Garlic powder. I would have toasted this with the other spices. Garlic powder tastes different to garlic. We have actual garlic in here. So we're using both. And it will give it a different sort of flavor and aroma. This is almost certainly not going to be enough water, which is fine. We have the technology. Now we'll get this kettle going so that we can add some already boiling water if we need to. Although this induction stove, 200 volt 30 amp, at least the fuse is,
does a really good job. It boils water really quickly. But we'll do it in the kettle separately so that we can only put in here what we need. Bring this back up to medium. You can see this color. A little bit of blackness from the spices that got a little too toasty. Obvious oil. And tomato bits. If you wanted to have smoother tomatoes, you could come in and put a stick blender or something in here. We're going to add our meat in. Rinse that bowl out while it's still warm. Make my job easier where I can. Yeah, we're definitely going to need more water. I'm going to let this come up to a boil before I put the veg in, because the veg is basically already all cooked as much as I want it cooked, especially the beans. Okay. Now this looks really thin for what I want the finished product to be, but we're adding another ingredient, thyme. Should have kept those beans separate, but oh well. Got everybody combined together. There's enough liquid in here. As soon as it comes up to a boil, I'm going to bring it down to a simmer, and we're going to let it hang out for a while. Alright, a couple of hours have passed, and this is what I'm looking for. Excuse me. Still a little bit of water. When I reheat this, more will come out. You could cook this down even more if you want. This is totally a matter of personal preference. I guess if you really wanted to, for whatever reason, you could thicken it, but that's not what we're doing here.
And now this is my idea of a good bowl of chili. Cornbread, freshly shredded cheddar cheese, chives from the garden, jalapeno from the garden, a very ripe serrano from the garden, diced raw red onion from the Costco, and of course underneath all of this is the chili. I hope you enjoyed this video. Probably just these two recipes for now. I had a cowboy candy recipe video where I made it for the first time, and yeah, that got deleted by accident. I had some camera trouble, but if you could give me a like and a subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you as always for watching, and I hope you make this at home and enjoy it. Bye bye.